you're in the product development and user experience section of the, or user-centered design segment of the show, and it's been great so far. We have been hearing from a variety of medical device experts on the subjects of human factors, usability, early in the morning collaboration at accelerator models, and wearable kidney replacement organs. So we've heard a wide variety, mostly focused on medical. Now we're going to get a perspective from outside the industry. Marc Fischer, CEO of Dogtown Media, and Marc is the CEO and co-founder of Dogtown Media. It's a mobile technology studio based in Venice Beach, California, that was named by Inc. as one of the fastest growing companies in America, so pretty exciting there. He has more than a decade of experience designing, developing, and launching digital products for tech startups and Fortune 500s, including Lexus, Google, Citibank, and the United Nations. So Marc studied international business and finance at Richmond International University of London. His career spanned multiple industries with time in corporate finance, film production, pretty cool, and digital marketing before transitioning into the high-tech space. And he was even formerly a professor at Santa Monica College, where he taught mobile app design to computer science and graphic design students. So we get an outside perspective talking to us about user experience and design, and in particular delighting the users, which is something I'm sure would all like to do with our products. So welcome, please welcome to the stage, Marc.
Thanks so much. Everybody, thanks so much for having me. As mentioned, I am an industry insider and outsider all at the same time. I consider myself a technologist at heart. I've had the privilege of working with developers, engineers of hardware and engineers of software to create impactful experiences that make an emotional connection between our intended users and the people that are stakeholders in projects. Give me just 1 second. There we go. So, Dogtown Media is a mobile technology studio. We're headquartered in Venice Beach, California, and we are a research-driven institution and design-driven institution. We want to get underneath the hood and see how an engine works, take it apart component by component, and then figure out how to put it back together and improve it. And to create an engaging experience so that when you jump in the driver's seat, you can steer the car better than you ever could before and get a superior acceleration. We also are very heavy into research, technical architecture, and software engineering. And we pull together our experience as hardware hackers on the engineering side and UX designers to make hardware smart. Hence why I'm here today to talk to you about connected devices, hardware, IoT frameworks, and the interfaces that act as command and control centers to delight your end users. You can follow me online on social at Dogtown Media. Website is dogtownmedia.com, or reach out to me personally at mark@dogtownmedia.com. So let's talk digital design. What is it that creates a great design? Why is this important to us? And how do we create delightful experiences? And then, how do we create delightful experiences that meld with the nuances of connected devices? And then I'll leave you guys with some tools and resources that you can use and bring into your organizations to improve your user experiences and your digital products. Then we can open it up to questions where you can talk about your experiences in your organizations and how you're looking to up your game and improve the devices that you're putting out and the digital experiences that you're building right now. So, fundamental question, what is great design? Great design is appreciated by your end users. It operates at the intersection of art and technology. Great design solves a problem. Great design does its job and does it well, and it's dependable, and it makes you want more. Design is the art of problem solving. Good design is obvious, and great design, according to Joe Sperano, a UX designer of note, is transparent. It's running behind the scenes. It's something that you appreciate without knowing that you appreciate it because it's just there and it's seamless. The goal of good design from a UX perspective, either hardware or on the software side, is to help users do what they want when interacting with your business and your solution. An example of this is the functionality of the Apple Watch, and I'll use this a couple times in this presentation, talking about design in the modern age and a device that's readily available over the counter at Apple stores online, and that also is cleared by the FDA as a medical device now. The Apple Watch has aspects of great design, and if you're using this device, it can intentionally track your vitals passively. So behind the scenes, it's doing work without needing any input from its end users. If your health is trending downwards, there are algorithms and there are actual alerts that will give you early warning signs that your health is running off the rails and that it's time to take intervention, either by changing your behaviors or by calling your doctor up and asking them for an appointment, or rushing yourself to the emergency room. I'm sure you can relate that when it comes to design, pleasant experiences, pleasant design makes everything just work better. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So design is thoughtful. It gives you a clear understanding of your user's behavior and takes them into account and puts them first. As an advocate for users, we are always thinking about how people physically engage with their phones, with the medical devices that they're using, and the software experiences that are powering these systems, connecting a physical piece of hardware with the software behind it. We need to take into account limitations and motivations. If you're building a product and your audience is formed around, your target audience is formed around helping senior citizens with a smart cane, for instance, then you need to take into consideration that any device that you're building, any experience, digital experience that you're building, has to have large print, has to be easily accessible, has to have large buttons, has to be easily seen and obvious and simple and thoughtful to the experience that your end user is going to have, because doing it right, building an app isn't the hard part. Building an app right is. Great design is functional in the way that it is able to solve a problem and do it well. It's relevant in the way that it meets a user's needs and reaches out to them with simplicity to solve whatever need that may be in as few steps as possible. An example of this functionality, coming back to the Apple Watch and their new ECG meter, is how simple this flow is and how the device that provides medical feedback is embedded into a watch with form factors that do not disturb and are easily adaptable and comfortable. Anybody who has worn a watch in their lifetime will have the same functionality that you get. You can tell the time. And now you can also tell if you're having a heart attack or a major medical meltdown. And the equipment does its job seamlessly behind the scenes, so that you don't need to drive. If you think you're having a medical emergency, you don't need to necessarily drive to the hospital, check in while you're panicking about your health, telling a nurse what's wrong with you, and then wait amongst other people to be seen by the physician if they can get around to you in time. You do a self-assessment with the click of a button, and 30 seconds later you can get the feedback that you were looking for. And these type of experiences are the type of feedback loops and mechanisms that I encourage you as medical device manufacturers and experts in your field to bring into your digital experiences, your form factors, and your flow, so that problems are being solved for your users behind the scenes. And to be able to do it in a matter of seconds instead of minutes, hours, or days. So great design is elegant. It paints your brand in a positive light. It's simple, it's intentional, it's colored in a way that will get a positive reaction from your audience. It's balanced, and it adds credibility to your organization as a professional standard that your users can trust and depend upon. Great design has emotional connections. Design can foster very powerful feelings. If you've ever been to an art museum, you know that looking at a painting can make you confused, happy, aroused, angry. It can be thoughtful. It can be intentional. When somebody downloads your digital product, let's say in an app form, you have only a few seconds to make an impression. Within 3 seconds, the human mind already judges whether I love it or whether I hate it, whether this is a good product or whether this is a bad product, whether this is a brand I can trust or whether this is a brand that I need to get as far away from as possible and tell my friends to move away from as well. Is this cool or is this an awful experience? Those questions will keep on coming up time and time again. And design is intentional and needs to be taken into consideration as you're designing each one of the flows of your product experience and the physical form factors and digital form factors around this device. For example, soft colors can signify comfort and induce calmness. Blue tones have been seen to signify and bring in feelings of trust and empathy. If you put in quirky, cute animations, they can spur feelings of joy and enjoyment. And intelligent iconography and visualization versus text can create a sense of trust, understanding, and dependability. So something to understand is that the healthcare industry is massive. In this country, it makes up $3.5 trillion of GDP spending every single year in this country alone. And that is rising year after year after year. The spending actually comes in at $11,000, give or take, per person per year in health spending. So why is it that healthcare is so expensive and getting more expensive every year, yet most people are paying a lot for experiencing bad design and bad form factors? This is an example of the EpiPen, and it shows you turn-by-turn directions on how to use it in case of emergency. EpiPens are oftentimes given to school nurses or to children who may be facing a negative reaction to an allergic reaction to food or a bee sting or some type of emergency. And seconds matter, not minutes, because their breathing can be closed off. And you see how many steps it takes to understand what the hell to do. You have to take off the packaging, push something down, find the right place on your leg. It doesn't show whether you have to roll your jeans up or roll it down. It's confusing, and it's bad design, and people pay the price and actually are injured or die. A lot of people are rushed to the hospital because they end up, the person administering the EpiPen ends up stabbing themselves accidentally. And the person who needs the treatment isn't getting treated as a result. So it's hard to create great products without knowing what a bad product looks like and what constitutes bad design. It's a look, it's a feel, it's subjective, but a lot of times it's painfully obvious. Because, let's face it, bad design creates more problems than it solves. These were problems that didn't exist before. And this is truthful. Everywhere you look in this world, there's bad design. In this room right now, I have an example of bad design. We have a projector that you have to walk around in order to get to these seats. So you automatically are disturbing the rest of the audience and distracting unintentionally to move into a seat. And I faced that when I came in this room towards the tail end of the other speaker's talk. And bad design can be cured. Bad design makes our lives harder. It makes simple and complex tasks all alike more difficult and more complex. It's anti-intuitive. Bad design happens whether it's from apathy, misunderstanding, or ineptitude. And it has far-reaching unintended consequences. And in the medical field, bad design has massive amounts of unintended consequences that rattle all the way down to patients that we're trying to help instead of hurt. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So bad design confuses. How many of you are familiar with Epic? It's the leading EHR in the world, basically. And this is what nurses and doctors and medical professionals look at when they're trying to enter in patient data. It is beyond confusing, beyond frustrating, and this is the best of breed that we're dealing with right now. UCLA, Cedars-Sinai, and thousands of other institutions across the world are utilizing Epic in their medical offices every day. And as you can see, it's ugly, it's confusing, it's difficult to navigate. It conjures up feelings of frustration. It's time-consuming, productivity is wasted, and it's inefficient in the way that information is collected, stored, and transmitted to other parties. And this is where your medical records live. Worst of all, the system is prone to admin errors that are simply caused by bad design. And it's making medicine more painful, difficult, and costly as a result, because more administrators have to be put in to hospitals across the land. The thing is that Epic and electronic health records stepped in because the way we used to do it was with pen and paper. In a lot of doctors' offices and hospitals across the land, information is actually transmitted by printer and then somebody walking over to a fax machine and then faxing medical records to another office. Those medical records are taken out of the fax machine at the other office and then scanned in to Epic system. The nice thing is to note that with a little bit of love and good design aesthetics, this can be fixed. And the whole experience all the way down the line in every aspect of medicine can be fixed as well. Bad design conjures up feelings of anger. It is the worst of human emotions. And if you are angering your users, you are going beyond doing something wrong. You are doing something terrible. The feelings of negative connotations flow from mild irritation to outright rage. And the consequences of pissing off your customers are not pretty at all. Customers will resist adopting your product. They'll drop it and tell their friends, and throw that device that you spent all this time and energy straight into the garbage. They'll delete your app that you spent all this time and energy building straight from their phone with 2 clicks. And they'll be sure to give it a bad review online and a bad reference, just like you would a bad restaurant that you go to on Yelp. Bad design simply fails your business objectives. You're going to lose customers, you're going to lose revenue, you're going to cede market share to your competitors that you're fighting tooth and nail for customers' hearts, bodies, and souls. And it's going to do lasting brand damage that oftentimes you can't recover from for decades. Your potential partners, your potential customers, your potential suppliers will be hesitant to engage in business relationships with you. Your potential investors and your potential holders, stakeholders, may think twice before doing business with you or abandon you altogether. The consequences, as we'll get into, are very, very serious. Because bad design is dangerous. You can reach into your pantry and you can pull out insect killer when you're trying to feed your kids at home and cook them dinner. When all you want is to grease the pan with canola cooking spray. This is real. And this occurs every day. And a lot of people are being hurt. In fact, over the past decade, 1.7 million injuries and 83,000 deaths have occurred from medical devices. Not saying all these injuries and deaths occurred from bad design, but bad design definitely played a big role in adverse outcomes. Bad hardware or bad software design can contribute to hurting the very people that we're trying to help. And the consequences of getting it wrong are serious. It can cause legal liability, regulatory sanctions, a PR nightmare, yanking the product off the market, and lead to a degrading of the business that you're spending your time, energy, and life force creating. So, why is digital design important? I can kind of answer that from my standpoint. Digital design is the focal point of creating impactful and lasting experiences. And at the end of the day, it's the most visceral and real way of solving problems, and done through our senses of touch, taste, sound, sight, and other methods for tactile feedback. From the business standpoint, the importance is your bottom line. Every $1 that is spent on UX research creates between $2 to $100 of return on investment. You can't find those type of odds of ROI anywhere. Not on Wall Street, not playing options, not even in Vegas. It is the clearest line of sight to revenue, to profit, and to building something that your customers will love and gravitate to and tell their friends about and tell their friends' friends about for years to come. So there's long-lasting benefits as well as the shorter term. You have an increased success rate for your project because you're taking risk off the table, and you're also doing a lot of the feedback and research up front, which is a lot less expensive than building a product that nobody wants to use and angers everybody or fails outright. You reduce your go-to market costs as a result because you take that risk off the table. And then your bottom line is improved because happier customers, more referrals, better reviews, more sales, more business, more profits. So now we're going to get into how you can create delightful digital experiences that your users will love. From the form factors of the medical devices that you're creating to the user interface and touch and feedback mechanisms that you can create between a medical device that's connected via IoT frequencies to your phone that sends and receives information and acts as a control center from your fingertips in the app, touching the app that you're building. So it all starts with research. The risk associated with digital health products, as we mentioned, is sky high because the penalties of getting it wrong are extreme. You can create serious health hazards and legal liability if you don't take this user research and user experience design up front very seriously. And when you're going through this process, the cool thing is that you will learn a lot about how to improve the form factors of your device and the experience of the digital product that you're building. And what you build may actually end up saving the person's life. This app that we're looking at is called NeoCool, which we built in partnership with the University of California, San Diego's Medical Center, including Sharp Health. We user tested the app with 5 neonatalists, 5 doctors that treat babies. And the specific use case was for babies that were born prematurely or that have an illness and need to be kept in close confines in an incubator so that their health can be monitored around the clock by medical professionals. It's a very delicate state, and anything that takes the baby out of this experience of constant monitoring and health can put the baby's life at risk within minutes. So this app helps medical practitioners to follow protocols to determine if an infant is overheating and needs to be cooled down, which I didn't know until I stepped foot into the emergency room and into the neonatal care unit, is a very actual precursor to a baby falling ill and then leading to sudden infant death syndrome. So we built questions within the protocols that had a specific, talking into a specific amount of a pH level, which would be needed to determine whether a baby went forward with the cooling therapy or not. And the pH level was just a patch that was put onto the baby's skin that monitored the acidity or alkaline amount that a baby was given off at any given time naturally by its body. The pH level was if the pH level was incorrect, related to industry standards, which meant that we had not user tested this properly, babies would have been misdiagnosed, which would have led to potential fatalities, which we can understand is not a good outcome. So moving on into personas. One of the most important things that you can do is to get under, as they say, to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. And we call this, from UX research, a persona, which is creating an entire assumption about who your users actually are. This guy, Clark Andrews, does not exist. But my belief is that Clark Andrews is my perfect use case for who will be downloading my app and be buying my connected medical device. We build stories around him. His age, his location, his marital status, his income level, what he does for a living, what his hobbies are, what his frustrations are, what he's into inside and outside of the office, a little bit around him, what he's currently using as far as apps and medical devices that he may be interested in, brands that he gravitates to and he recognizes, and then items around his personality so that we can relate to his emotions and his feelings and have empathy with him. And when you create a persona, you are creating the building blocks of your digital experience. Because everything has to do with creating an experience for your end user, not for me and not for you. The end user is the most important person because this is the individual that will be affected by the outcomes of the decisions you make right now. If you're interested in building out a persona for who your current target audience and clients may be, or who your future audience may be, I highly recommend HubSpot's persona tool. HubSpot.com/make-my-persona. And you can go in there and run through the flow of who your buyer may be and who your user may be. And then you can print these out and you can use it for research to determine if your assumptions are correct or incorrect, and then make rapid iterations on your game plan and strategy, your go-to-market strategy from that point. An important thing to know is what you're creating. Ask yourself, what problem are you trying to solve? Not just at the very beginning, but at every stage of this process of either creating the hardware, the software, or the design. What problem are you trying to solve with this screen? What problem are you trying to solve with this button? What problem are you trying to solve with this interface, these graphics? What is it that you want the user to understand here? What is your solution? And then asking, why do people need this at all? And then going back to your business goals, then making sure that everybody's aligned, because organizations are made up of lots of stakeholders, and stakeholder input is very important. And by having these questions answered, it's much faster and easier to get your entire team on board and ready to move on with this process. Next is to sketch it out. And what this means is taking your pen and putting it to paper. You do not need to be a professional artist or hire one. All you need is to basically start by making a vertical rectangle that represents a cell phone screen, or a horizontal rectangle that represents a website page. And then label it. What do you want to call it? Is this your home screen? Is this your login screen? Is this your sign-up screen? Is this your syncing screen? Is this your data screen? Is this, and on and on and on. And just make simple flows connecting each one. That's your first step. Next step is to go a little bit more in depth and to create the wireframes, which is kind of like the architectural blueprint of what makes up a digital experience. And within the wireframes, you just create small boxes and label them, and that represents something like heartbeat, or data syncing, or battery power, or user sign-up, or lost password recovery, or whatever it may be that you want to function on that page. And go in with the goal of creating as few clicks as possible to get to the next stage in the process of building out your user flow. And once you have those screens together, it's time to prototype. And there's tools out there that allow you to actually take the screens that you have sketched out and build them into an interactive prototype. And what we're looking at is a prototyping tool called PopApp that's been put out by marvelapp.com. Screen by screen that you design, you take a picture of it with the app, you upload it, and then you highlight with your finger what areas are going to be hot zones, and you link those hot zones to the next screen. So you can link buttons together, you can link cells, fields, form fields together. You can link screen by screen by screen, so that you have an entire flow that you can then go and test with your sample users. So next comes into gathering a user base of people that may be current clients or prospective clients, or people that you think could be prospective clients and users, and ask them to play with this app, this prototype. Look over their shoulder, see what's working and what needs to change. Ask them questions. What did they like? What did they dislike? What worked? What didn't work? And then you can go back to the drawing board and quickly reiterate, iterate on what you learned from that experience. And then go and test again and again and again until you get it right. And it's a very cheap, quick, and simple way of testing your assumptions before going to market with a very expensive and time-consuming production plan. This is probably the cheapest and most effective way of taking risk off the table. Prototyping and testing. Next, we'll talk about understanding the power of connected devices. Yes?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So the prototyping app, so how far does it take you? Can I go commercial with this?
No. This is simply for user research purposes. There is a much more powerful prototyping tool that's for more experienced users called Envision app. And that's where you put together your high fidelity screens, which are the polished off screens of the user interface, where you take screen by screen and stitch them all together in the flow. You can launch it directly from your device and you can share it with other people, regardless of what they're using. You can see it from a desktop screen through a website. You can see it from Android or an iPhone. And that's what I recommend if you're going commercial. You then export the designs that you have in a system called Zeppelin and pass it on to your software engineers. And when you have that output and go through these systems and structures, it makes the development cycle of a digital interface very fluid and very fast and efficient. So everybody gets what they need with the right documentation in hand, so that cross-functional teams can really get moving and put a product to market in months instead of years. So moving on, the cross-functionality of connected devices and digital experiences is really interesting and something I'm extremely passionate about. And talking into what mobile actually is and what a mobile experience is, it's a screen. Mobile is tactile. It is made of an experience where I see something on a screen, I interpret what all those pixels mushed together means, I channel it in my brain, and then I react with a touch and a gesture. And a touch may be something that we do every day, such as pinching to zoom, pushing a button, pushing into a field, typing with our thumbs, and using actual touch and our fingers for almost everything. Nowadays, there's a lot more that's going on with audio controls and our controls using actual gestures without needing the phone. But right now, the Alexa is not quite powerful enough to power all of our digital devices in a connected world, and we're still very much dependent upon everything that we see and that we touch in the form factors of an application or a website. Medical devices, on the other hand, are all about utility. It's a tool set that humans have created to perform a medical task. And usually this medical task is performed between a caregiver or a physician or a nurse and a patient. So it's usually a one-way type of flow. With digital devices, connected devices, medical devices that are made smart through digital means, we now have the ability to conduct self-assessments and do monitoring of patients remotely from the comfort of their own homes. Therefore, it is imperative that we're able to sync an app fluidly with the connected devices around us. In the next few years, there will be more than 1 trillion IoT devices in the form of connected devices, wearable devices, medical devices, IoT devices, smart city devices, smart car devices, and everything in between. In fact, at CES this year, there were over 500 exhibitors of new medical wearable devices alone. And that number is rising year after year. This is a booming marketplace, and digital design has never been more important than it is right now. In the flows that we're creating, data is the most powerful unit that we have. And being able to transmit data fluidly from a human to a medical device, to a mobile device, to the cloud, and then to a desktop and a secure website portal are the flows that are making massive amounts of change in the healthcare ecosystem right now. A patient who's sitting at home on their couch can monitor their blood pressure, their pulse rate, their heart rhythms, their glucose level, their weight, and any number of other personal vital signs, and have it digitized, stored, analyzed through machine learning and AI algorithms, have that data shared with medical professionals at distance that may be thousands of miles away from them, and then receive instantaneous feedback on what type of behavioral changes they need to make, such as diet, exercise, or medication adherence, in order to change their health and improve their patient outcomes. This is one of the focal points of human longevity, and making it capable for people to live longer, significantly longer, healthier, and happier lifestyles without crimping their day-to-day lives. A watch is a passive mechanism, and the form factors of medical devices are getting smaller, smarter, and more powerful all the time. So a few quick wins for connected experiences and things to take into account as you're building out these ecosystems for your products. Make the sign-up process seamless. Only ask users for what you absolutely need, fill in the blanks for them, and allow them to finish looking at a page and skip over elements so you don't frustrate them. The key term is to get out of your user's way. If they don't need to do something right now, don't make them do it. Move out of their way and allow them to come back and complete this process later. When you build an app, when you build a digital experience, there's teams of up to dozens of people that are working around the clock to get something out into the App Store, onto somebody's phone. There's marketers, there's regulators. There are so many moving parts and so much expense. And all you're paying for at the end of the day is that logo of an icon to show up on somebody's phone and hope that they click it and start using it. And if you piss them off right now, after you've gone through all that trouble, all that investment is gone. So make it easy for them to sign in. Use shortcuts like Face ID or a thumbprint scan or other mechanisms that are also HIPAA compliant to log into the experience and get the data that they need instantaneously. The biggest detriment of a mobile device, in my opinion, are our thumbs, and how thumbs do not work well on small keypads. It's hard to see, a lot of mistakes are made, and nobody likes typing at the end of the day. And if you make somebody type consistently to enter into the app experience, they're going to get frustrated, and you're probably going to lose them. So make it easy for people to get what they want when they want it. Make the onboarding experience into the app enjoyable. Use iconography. Use color schemes. use your wit, your personality, and create that emotional connection that you would crave yourself. All too often in the medical industry, we feel like it's a clinical, transactional type of experience, and it's soul-sucking, and it doesn't need to be. There's a bunch of quick wins that you can implement into your systems, into your digital experience, that will make somebody smile, that'll make somebody happy, that'll make somebody feel joy. And those are the type of emotional connections that we crave as humans, and that you, as product designers and product developers, have the power to put out into the world. Another important thing is to make syncing devices a fluid and seamless affair. The reason why we've seen such a growing marketplace and so many people buying in to connected devices like never before, and the consumerization factor of connected devices, is because they're easier than ever before to buy, they're cheaper than ever before to buy, they're more powerful than ever before to buy. But a lot of times, the user experience of connecting that device with the app running on this phone is horrible. It fails, it doesn't sync, it unsyncs and doesn't resync, and my data is trapped and locked and I can't do anything about it, and I want to take that connected device off my wrist or off my body, put it down and never pick it up again. Or just put it in the trash or give it away to somebody else. It doesn't need to be that way. Cross-functional teams of software engineers, hardware engineers, and UXers can create flows and technologies so that if you're syncing your connected device via Bluetooth, you can walk away and unsync naturally and have data stored directly on the device, and when you walk back in range and you resync automatically behind the scenes, that data is automatically transmitted to the app, which goes up to the cloud and fills in the blanks in that real-time data that was missing automatically. And these systems and sequences are readily available in SDKs and APIs right now. So another thing is to design for usability. Going back to earlier, I was talking about building for seniors. In America and in the Western world right now, we have a rapidly aging population. Over 10,000 people a day are celebrating their 65th birthday. So I think in 12 years' time, by 2030, just after 2030, we are going to have 25%, 1 in 4 people in America that's over the age of 65 in our midst. And I know as I'm aging that my vision is not what it used to be, and will probably continue to degrade as such. And people need experiences that are easy to recognize, easy to react to, and that lead them in the right direction and give them the information that they crave right away. And what that looks like is readable print, a smooth navigation schema, color tones that are easily recognizable, and transitions of colors that pop off the screen. An example of this is some technology that we've been using to change the entire user interface depending upon low light and high light scenarios. So a low light scenario, it's 10 o'clock at night, you pick up your phone, you open up the connected device app that you're using, and the whole experience changes. It's a black backdrop with bright colors and bright font that's bigger than before and more luminous, so you can see it in the dark and get that information right away. In the daytime, transitioning back to a lighter white background with dark print on it that looks seamless when the sun is shining on the screen or in your face. And then being able to re-engage inactive users. So we all know what the Apple Watch, the Fitbit, and other connected devices do because they're commercial, they're off the shelf, and you can buy them anywhere. But medical devices, a lot of times we don't know what to do. We don't know what to expect. We don't know what the prompts are. And as users, we need to have an expectation of the same type of service that we get from consumer devices. The same type of high-level user experiences and design form factors that we see off the shelf every day. And if we don't do it while designing medical devices, the consumer market will flood in and take that market share away from us. Re-engaging inactive users is important because they need these medical devices oftentimes to live. And if you don't have them using it, somebody could get hurt and there's serious consequences. So prompting them to come back into the app via push notifications, notifications like this on your Apple Watch to stand up, for instance, or transactional emails to pull them back into the experience and say, hey, we noticed you haven't been logging on for the past couple days. Here's a couple tricks and tips in case you were curious how to resync your device and get on board. Or talking about user stories and sharing those with people. As we wind down, setting up intuitive actions so that you lead the user to the experience that you want to create, such as wearing a Fitbit and not tracking your health during the day, but actually tracking your sleep cycle at night. And leading somebody to set the alarm clock on when they should go to sleep, and reminding them to wear their Fitbit to bed so that you can track the quality of sleep. Positive affirmations when somebody does a great job, to let them know it, and let them know it out loud. And actionable alerts sent to the right people at the right time at the right place to save lives. So that if you're having a heart attack in the middle of the night while you're sleeping and nobody's around to help you, or even if somebody was around to help you in the room next door, that connected device that you are wearing in the form of a patch or a watch transmits information immediately to the people that can act upon it, such as emergency services, your friends, your loved ones, your caregiver, or your doctor. A couple design resources I was talking about before, Envision app at the top, which is my favorite high-fidelity prototyping tool. Sketch, which is a system kind of like Photoshop that allows you to make seamless designs of your interactive digital experience, either in web form or iOS or Android. Dribble for design inspiration, Medium for design inspiration, blogs such as Optimizely, Nielsen Norman Group, and app development information given out by Apple Health and HHS for HIPAA compliance standards. And with that, thank you guys so much for letting me talk to you about connected devices and user experience today. As we got 2 more minutes, I'd like to field any questions that you may have.
Anybody have a question for Marc? Marc, you're working, it sounds like your work's taking you from a place focused on technology, but with like NeoCool and some of these maybe other work you're doing. Mm-hmm. Are you just getting introduced now to the medical device field?
No, I've actually been working in connected devices shortly after we got started. And the first product we ever put out in the marketplace was for senior care, which was a patch with an embedded Bluetooth monitor on it that monitored people's heart rates, breathing rates. It also had a fall monitor. So it was for assisted living people living in assisted living facilities or at-home aging. So if a medical emergency were to occur, an EMT, a family member, or a caregiver would be alerted with actionable alerts to an issue taking place. We also were analyzing the data streams coming out of the device so that we could put different color codes such as green, yellow, or red as far as areas of concern for human health over time.
Anybody else?
Yes?
So the mobile technology and the medical device world is very evolving, right? So
Yeah.
what are the governing standards for any mobile technology, like the mobile app or maybe for interfaces in the medical device?
That's a great question. So the government right now is being a lot more helpful than they were just a few years ago. The FDA has put out new rules and regulations around software pertaining to medical devices. So there's a whole line of protocols that I, as a medical device software developer, need to adhere to make sure that everything that we put out is standardized, holding on to information privately and securely, respecting HIPAA compliance protocols and others. So two main are FDA regulations and HIPAA compliance.
We're just about out of time here, but we've got I don't know if you'll be around, but we have a 15-minute break now. Don't run off though. We've got the president of Integrated Design Systems, Michael, I think it's you, right? Michael, thought it was you. Michael Poloian is going to be talking about design of a handheld hyperspectral imaging camera at 3:15. So come back at 3:15 and